Zalen, What Kills Must Die by Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett and Marcos Martins. Joe Bennett again delivers with great art and action sequences, while Chuck Dixon writes Zalen in a very reminiscent manner of Superman. However, it doesn't feel like Zalen is a rip-off character or anything like that. He has enough identity to stand on his own, and I hope that that is being underscored in future issues as well. We start off the comic book with the Rippaverse ethic. The Rippaverse ethic is compiled into three major pillars: respect the customer, canon and continuity, and have a comprehensive timeline. On the other page is a foreword of the author or the writer of the character, Chuck Dixon. Chuck Dixon has has talked about how he has gotten into comic books and specifically sci-fi comic books and how much reverence and respect he has for the craft of creating sci-fi stories. Now, if you want to read this, just pause the video and read through it all. I promise you, it's very charming. I would say it is an insight into how older comic readers have experienced comic books. And for me, as a younger individual who has not experienced the 70s or the golden age of comic books or the silver age even, I find that these insights are very inspiring. It's just the story of how much love and care is put into the craft, and then how people are being inspired to go out there and create something great. The comic book starts off with multiple blue aliens being at a very tough route in their existence. There's a lot of pain and suffering being portrayed in their expressions, and it appears they are starving or they do not have access to something that they need, like resources or whatnot. And it is it is very fun for me to see the imagination of a person creating those characters, those aliens, those monsters or whatnot. And especially when it comes to the space pirates, which look like bat-like creatures, I find that this reminds me a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, but there's enough personality in each individual ship, in each individual creature, that these beings can stand on their own. And just like I said in my earlier Horseman review, I hope that this species or this group makes a return to become villains against the main character, or this idea of having reoccurring villains. I think that is something that I'm really looking forward to in the Rippaverse, because there are some interesting looking characters that fight the hero at the beginning, and you don't know if they're going to show up again. I hope they do. With that said, we see in the later pages how Zalen saves the planet by having the water which has been frozen drop back onto the planet. Now, if that makes logical sense or if that's scientifically even possible, like, to be honest, I do not care. It's comic book logic, in my opinion. We're dealing with, I would say, characters with the strength to destroy entire villages or entire countries and whatnot, so it isn't a big deal for me. Now, what is a big deal, however, is how Zalen is portrayed in this very beautiful, radiant golden armor, flying through um, the different the pirate ship and just looking like an absolute badass. I love this panel so much. There is so much to see. You can see planets in the background. You can see a small particle effect that goes through the entire screen subtly. It looks like what Jack Kirby did in his earlier comic books when he showed off, I think, Galactus. This antimatter effect, like I don't know how it's called. I don't think there is a name for it. And it is just so beautiful to see how it is introduced here. This shows to me that the artist knows what he is doing and has studied older artists as well. This particle effect is something that is very much uh, closely tied to Jack Kirby. For those of you who don't know, Jack Kirby is one of the original creators of the Fantastic Four, most of the villains, as well as Captain America. Now, from this point onward, I will not spoil anything about the story. I will just go into how characters look, how they're designed, and what makes this comic book stand on its own, and what makes the main character so unique. Now, starting off, we got a very interesting face shape of the character. He doesn't look really human. He looks like a humanoid. To me, it reminds me a lot of Captain Spock from Star Trek, but it isn't really off-putting or unsettling. I, however, do not know why exactly they made him look this way. Uh, Probably they just didn't want to make him look like a human being, but yeah, it is uh, an interesting looking fella. Now, his armor is just so beautiful. Every single time when he shows up, you can see the reflections of light coming from him. There's this nobility that he just portrays. And I think that with the color, it just creates a very warm and just very awe inspiring image. Now, his crew is made up of a furry wolf man and I would say she looks like a space elf essentially. Now, it's it reminds me a lot of old sci-fi TV shows and movies, which had a more lighthearted tone to them. And you also have a bunch of green aliens that support Zalen in his quest to dispense justice across the universe. It just makes me smile. It got this 70s 80s charming sci-fi style to it. It isn't dark and gritty. It is pretty just warm and very peaceful. And even the design of the spaceships seems to be inspired by older sci-fi classics, something like Star Trek, for example. And then we come to the main point of this video, the distinction of Zalen between Superman. I think it's an important point to make for new readers because I think that people might be hesitant to pick up this comic book specifically because it looks like this character is just another Superman, another superpowered being that can fly. Like, what makes this guy different? What makes this guy unique? That's what we're going to go into now. So, the way he acquires his powers is by actually being trained for them. I will go into a little bit of spoilers here, but not too much. Um, it appears that he has strong a strong will to even endure whatever he has been through. Now, it has been elaborated on in the comic book a little bit, but he has been going through something called an ion bath, a mutation causing process, which is quite mysterious. But I believe that in the comic book Great War of Separation, we also see characters go through a similar procedure. But it appears that Zalen has been through so much that he has become essentially a demigod. But what is very reassuring is that even he can get his ass whooped. He can be beaten by other beings that are even stronger than him, aliens and whatnot. And that is what I find very intriguing. So there are things out there that can harm him, that can hurt him, that can subdue him. And that is something that I'm looking forward to in future issues of Zalen. And when he makes it to Earth, I hope that there are going to be some back and forth battles. But right now, all of this, all of what we have seen in the comic book, the art, the story, and the characters, I'm very, very satisfied with what I got. Now, but most of my satisfaction with this comic book comes from the idea that there is more to come. There is more to explore, more fights to be had. So, if I would give this comic book a rating, I would give it a probably 7 out of 10 because it is a great entry into a new character's legacy. And legacy is what the Rippaverse is going for right now. So we have yet to see how the Rippaverse is gonna move forward, but so far I'm convinced that if the art stays as explosive, as beautiful as it is, that alone will catapult this character into cult status one day. Now, of course, there's a chance that they might fumble the ball, that they might just go down the road of having too much exploration via speech bubbles and just taken away from the action. But that's all speculation for now. So tell me what you think about this. Do you believe that Zalen has the ability to become the next big hero, maybe even rivaling the likes of Superman, for example? Or do you believe that this is a character just created hastily without any sense of direction or future? Now, with that said, like, subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I see you in the next one. Neon signing out.